EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to the JAKIB Pregame Show. Week 4, everybody. Eagles going down to Tampa Bay right now, getting ready to kick off versus the Buccaneers. That's John McMullen, the #1 Eagles beat reporter in town. That's Dan Sileo, host of the National Football Show, 1987 national champion on the Miami Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zander Krause. Johnny Mack, I'm going to start off coming to you. I want to welcome everybody in. Thank you for being here on the pregame show today. Johnny Mack, let's go right to the injury report, man. Eagles coming into this game without a couple big players. What's the inactive list look like? And just an update on the injury front for those who have not heard.
Well, those who haven't heard, Lane Johnson ruled out this morning, couldn't get through the concussion protocol. It's difficult now to get through it in 1 week's time. Looked pretty positive at the end of the week, but that's out of the Eagles' hands. The final sort of stage 5 is cleared by an independent neurologist, so it's out of the Eagles' hands. Lane's not able to get through the concussion protocol, so he's inactive. Brett Johnson will start at right tackle. Pretty easy inactive week to predict because there's so many injuries. Devontae Smith already ruled out. He's in the concussion protocol as well. A.J. Brown ruled out Saturday. He's got still in the last stages of that rehab from his hamstring, was able to get out there and practice a little bit on Friday. He's out there pregame now, working with some of the receivers, but Eagles are going to play that cautious with the bye week coming up after this game. So, when Ed Kratz, I said this before we jumped on the air, Ed Kratz and I do our top 25 Eagles best pure football players. So no impact of position. Always the quarterback would be number 1 there. Just best pure football players. We had AJ 1, we had Lane Johnson 2, we had Devontae Smith 3. So arguably the best 3 Eagles are out for this particular game. Devin White's not traveling, if people have not heard, for personal reasons. So he's an obvious inactive. Tanner McKee, the emergency quarterback. And then the last 2 are Trevor Keegan, the rookie guard, Byron Young, late sort of acquisition at defensive tackle. Those are typically inactive players. The one guy who's typically inactive that is up is Darian Kennard, backup offensive lineman. He's got more of an ability to play tackle than Trevor Keegan, so that's why he gets the nod over Trevor Keegan.
So some big injuries there. It's game day, everybody. We're all getting fired up. Big Sills. It's tough to do that as an Eagle fan when you hear no AJ, no Devontae, no Lane Johnson. How do they overcome that one today, Big Sills? Those are some big injuries, as Johnny Mack just pointed out.
I'd like to see them, without a doubt, piggyback what they did in the fourth quarter against the Saints. Personally, I thought Jalen, and again, I am not saying not to have Devontae or AJ on the field, but it looked to me that Jalen was spreading the ball around a lot better when he didn't have Devontae out there. He found Goddard streaking across the middle of the field. I mean, that was an audible. Also going across the middle there, you had to get the ball around because he knew he didn't have the weapons. Barkley was a factor. You had Barkley and Goddard and Hurts. I mean, for the first time in a couple of years here, I actually saw the 22 offense being run to a T, and those guys were effective. I'm going to say it one more time to you. When Jalen Hurts is in open space, I almost fear him more than I do Lamar Jackson, for the simple fact he's a better passer. I mean, Lamar couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. I mean, but Jalen Hurts is a better passer, and that opens up his passing lanes. And when they're going and attacking the seam or the hash marks with Goddard, I don't think the Buccaneers, look, Devontae David's a heck of a football player. I'm a huge fan of his. I love him. Todd Bowles loves him without a doubt. One of the absolute best linebackers Tampa Bay has ever had. But Goddard versus him, I'll take that advantage, Philly. He's a great player when called upon. He's being called upon now. Look, I think the game plan, this is more going to be about how Kellen Moore gets the football in the hands of guys here. I think Jalen is going to be Jalen. I think he's going to try to spread the ball around. Look, Dotson, Wilson, we're not talking Devontae Smith here and A.J. Brown.
No.
This is a game here. I got to say, Don, these are one of those games where you do this. Can he win a game unlike Brock Purdy when Brock Purdy doesn't have all the pieces? And in the fourth quarter of that Saints game, there he was. He was leading the charge in winning a football game. Now you've got 60 minutes of it here. I'll tell you what, man, for me, this will be a big game for Kellen Moore and for Jalen Hurts. You come out of Tampa, and I don't care on Monday or later this afternoon when we're at the postgame show. I don't care if it's 3-2. You get out of Tampa with a win, losing half your offense. That is a massive win, especially early in the season with all these injuries.
Yep, Eagles looking to go into the bye week at 3-1. John, if you want to follow up there on Dan, I asked you for the inactives, but just your reaction to, coming into this game and not having AJ, Devontae, and Lane. Those are some big hits.
Yeah, those are some big hits. The Bucs are really banged up as well, though, so that factors in. They had 17 players on their injury report during the week, so even the guys that are playing, a lot of them are banged up. The most notable for them is Antoine Winfield Jr., who might be their best player, to be honest. He's out. Kalijah Cansey, who's their best interior pass rusher, he's out. And late's ruled out, similar to the Eagles, Luke Gedeke. Now, Luke Gedeke isn't Lane Johnson, but he's good. And they've been really bad at right tackle with him out of the lineup. And he was pushing to play this week, couldn't get over the hump as well. So it'll be Justin Skule, most likely, who has not played well.
Dare I say a Bryce Huff game coming with a
opportunity. And also Jalen Carter. We want to see that consistency. He was tremendous last week, but he's going against a rookie center. So another opportunity for him right in the middle of that Tampa Bay offensive line. So they've struggled pretty mightily up front. And arguably, not as impactful, but still some pretty good players, and they're more banged up than the Eagles. So, yeah, I don't want to hear the injury excuses for one side, not the other, for this game. Now, that said, I just said 1, 2, 3. And I firmly believe those are the three best pure football players on the Philadelphia Eagles. So you got to go about it a different way. Like Dan said, if you got to win 3-2, you got to win 3-2. If you got to win 7-6, what happened? I don't expect explosions offensively, other than, we're still in the small sample size section of the season, but over a small sample size, Tampa Bay has not handled the rush well, or the running game, the ground game well. From a defensive perspective, they haven't tackled well. Todd Bowles mentioned that this morning. They need to tackle better. If there's ever a Saquon Barkley day for the Philadelphia Eagles, this is it. This is it. And they need to ride him to the finish line, whatever that looks like. That's how this game needs to be won for the Eagles.
Vita Vea, supposedly is not as healthy too. So John,
he's very banged up.
Yeah,
so,
I don't know.
He's going to try to play.
He's playing though today, right?
Yeah,
he's playing. But again, you're talking about a guy going in at about 75%, and it's a great opportunity again for the middle of that offensive line, which has lost some players now. Again, Steen did a great job last week, and I don't know what it is. Okay, you get a little Stoutland voodoo dust thrown on these guys. I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen anything like it. Don't ever tell me there's a better organization in pro football than the Eagles when it comes to reclamation projects, draft choices. I don't know what it is, from Howard Mudd to this guy here, Stoutland. John, I've never seen anything like it. The New York Giants have looked for an offensive line for about 20 years.
Yeah, they have.
And have not found one.
There's a bunch of teams.
They got one good tackle up there now. The Eagles are rolling in Fred Johnson, who was a cast-off before he got to Philly, and now he's made himself a ton of money. Steen looks like the player that they drafted out of Bama. By the way, congratulations to you, Zander. Big win last night over Georgia.
Had to hang on. I don't know how they had to hang
John,
on.
They're coming. I watched Georgia march back in that game. I'm like, no way. And then Bama got, answered quick. Ryan Williams, a 17-year-old freshman. Hell of a game last night, without a doubt. Big Sills, I'm going to come right back to you, though, here. We're talking about these dudes A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Lane Johnson. Those aren't just dudes, as I just
No.
said. These are, the best dudes on the field.
You got to remember, Tanner, they're not what John said. They're not just the best guys on the Eagles. These guys are in the top 5 in the league.
Yeah.
I mean, you could probably drop down Devontae into the top 12, but
Top
AJ's
12,
a
13,
top
somewhere in
3 wide receiver, and Lane is a top 3 tackle. I mean, we're not talking just dudes here. We're talking about impactful guys here. I mean, these guys aren't just the best guys on the Bucs.
Right. That's problem number 1 for Jalen Hurts. Problem number 2 is Tampa Bay is all about pressure defense, and Todd Bowles is maybe one of the best in the business at creating pressure, timing his blitzes, taking your offense out of sync, all sorts of things. How does Jalen respond today? Not only to that, because I think even with AJ and Devontae out there, that's been a hurdle for Jalen Hurts. Now they're not on the football field, and he's still going to have to respond to Todd Bowles' blitzing today. How do you think Jalen handles the blitz today?
In the 4 matchups, Todd Bowles, as a coordinator and as a head coach, is 3-1 versus Hurts, and Hurts has not played well.
Yeah.
Okay. His numbers are completely down. And Kellen Moore said it in his press conference a couple days ago. The one thing about Todd Bowles, this guy is he's like a snowflake in the fact that you're never going to see the same one twice. The blitz packages that he has, him, Brian Flores up in Minnesota, some of the people around the league. Hell, you can go back to Bud Carson when you're talking about the blitz packages here that you have here with Bowles. Bowles is sensational at bringing pressure. You don't know where it's coming from. He does that same kind of stuff that Brian Flores does. He'll line up 8 on the line of scrimmage, and before you know it, you got 8 in coverage, and you don't really know who's coming. So this is going to be instrumental in this game here for Jalen to identify where he thinks pressure is coming from. Now, again, John, I don't know how many passes we're looking at here, especially, when you've got so many pieces out of your offense here. Are you going to throw the ball 25 times? Is this going to be heavy run in this game here? Are you going to run the ball first? Are you going to try to loosen them up? Because I agree with John. I think, look, they got a good defensive lineman in there. They've got a great linebacker. They're secondary. They got Dean on the corner. They're not awful. And like John said, it's a small sample size.
Yeah.
In the first, they got a great win against Detroit. Now, Detroit turned the football over up there in Motown, so that was a factor. However, it's a small sample size to start talking about rankings. On the other side here too, John, you got to remember something here. Philly's second in offense, right? Well, they're 24th in red zone offense. I mean, I don't care about that number, you being second in offense, when you're 24th in red zone offense. I mean, you're not getting the ball in the end zone. But I would say this to Nick. Hey, Nick, half your team's gone. Dude, field goals are going to be a premium. Those things are going to be like, dude, do me a favor. I don't care if it's 4th and 1. Wherever you are in the 1-yard line, at the end of the day, kick the field goal. It's going to pay off in the end. If they run the ball 28 times and they do all the instrumental things that they can do, they should walk out of here with a victory. They start getting cute in Tampa, they'll get beat.
Don't take that one to the bank on Elliott field goals. I appreciate Brandon Snyder who checks in with the super chat. Elliott might kick 4 field goals today. Sirianni will not be passing up freebies. We will see. Johnny Mac, your take on Todd Bowles, Jalen Hurts going up against Todd Bowles without his key players. It makes it, all that more tough. How does Jalen respond to, what Todd's going to bring today?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. As Sills mentioned, he's 1-3 against Todd Bowles. Generally, Todd has been very effective flushing Jalen Hurts to his left. That seems to be the game plan.
Yeah.
He's got a very disciplined team. He typically does. And they've done a good job penning him in, and he's been generally ineffective at that type of plan. We'll see. Coaches tend to outthink themselves, talking about it from an offensive perspective. I could see the Eagles throwing the football early simply because everybody and their mother knows eventually they're going to settle down and go to Saquon Barkley. So, if Tampa Bay comes out trying to shut down Saquon, I could see the Eagles trying to get a little bit too smart when you talk about Jahan Dotson and Paris Campbell and Johnny Wilson and John Ross. Those are your receivers for this game. So you're not going to be able to just line up and beat Tampa Bay, which has a very good secondary, even without Antoine Winfield Jr. That's the strength of their defense. Their other safety, Jordan Whitehead's very good. Zion McCullum, who's the brother of Tristan McCullum's having a very good early season. And Sills mentioned Dean. So they're still pretty good on the back end as a whole. And look, the Eagles are not good at receiver in this game. People need to come to that grips. And starting with the Eagles, number one, John Ross gets elevated. He just got here this week. He hasn't played an NFL game since 2021. Maybe he can surprise somebody with a speed and get a big hit down the field, but it's not going to be consistent. So I could see people being a little bit upset early as the Eagles try to take advantage of maybe Tampa Bay overextending themselves to stop Saquon Barkley, because they have not stopped the run well at all this season. So they're going to be hyper focused on that. The game within the game. As far as Nick Sirianni, look, I was texting our buddy Bob Croats this morning. He made a good point. Look, in a lot of ways, it doesn't matter what Nick does. He's not getting credit. If the Eagles win this game offensively, Kellen Moore's going to get the credit. If it's a big offensive performance, defensively, Vic Fangio's obviously going to get the credit. He's a lightning rod right now. He's there. And I was thinking about this, and I bring up Bob because he brought it up to me, and it's a good point. He's Roger Goodell. He's their Roger Goodell. He's there to take the hits.
That's true.
He's there to take the hits. And there's nothing wrong with that, but just to the point of fourth down, and Nick's got to do this. Nick's got to take the hits. That's it. And he'll take the hits on the fourth downs. But if it's 4th and 1, as Dan pointed out at the 1 yard line, they're going for it. Get used to it. 4th and 4, maybe a little bit different this week because of the limitations. But 4th and 1 with Jalen Hurts, they're going for it.
John,
great for my show Monday. Great for my show on Monday, John. Hey, John, real quick there, Zander. Do you think that you could possibly see, because you mentioned that wide receiving core, not something to write home about, do you think that the running back room could get a little bit more work with Gainwell and with Shipley? You might feel better because, again, with the fact that you don't know what you really have in that wide receiving core, that you would see more of those guys being utilized, like Shipley and Barkley in the passing game, because those guys, to me, I like that room a little bit better than when you say Paris Campbell and Dotson and Wilson versus Shipley, Gainwell, and Barkley. Could we see more of the running back room being utilized?
Not from my perspective. I mean, tight end, that's Grant Calcaterra.
Will they go two tight end, John? You think?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They'll play a ton of 2 tight ends today.
John, you don't think any Saquon in the passing game today? I mean, I know we talked about it
maybe an occasional, but
I just mean we talked about it all off season. It's easy to say he's not going to be there when you have AJ Devontae.
First game that was a heck of a play on the sideline, too.
Paris
but with all due respect to any running back in the NFL, and there's a couple of exceptions. Alvin Kamara of the Eagles just saw Aaron Jones. I always talk about Christian McCaffrey, number 1, but he's not playing right now. Other than those guys, even the Jahan Dotsons of the world, you have to understand, they are immensely guys like Jahan Dotson are immensely better receivers than the best running back receivers.
Yeah, that's what you're saying.
So number 1, now if you can create the matchup and you're going 5 wide with Saquon, and you can create the matchup like they did against Green Bay.
Yeah.
And it's that linebacker running over, has got no clue on what to do in pass coverage, then it's advantage Eagles. But you really want them going 5 wide to try to set up those matchups in this particular game. And you got Paris Campbell, Jahan Dotson, and John Ross out there. I don't know.
You make sense, John. That works with AJ and Devontae. If I'm a coordinator, am I going like this? Hey, they're going 5 wide. And they've got Paris Campbell and Dotson. I know what you're doing. You're kind of in your hand. Well, I'm telling you, they want to get the ball to Barkley. So, yeah, I see your point. You're gonna maybe do more in the passing game when those other guys are healthy, not when those guys are not healthy. I get it.
Yeah, because it's easier to disguise.
Yeah,
we have a couple questions here from our couple super chats. Joseph and Nick, thank you guys for your super chats. I think Barkley's best player. Give Barkley 25 carries and an Eagles win. John, I'll come to you first on this. is it as simple as run it down their throat and try and force them to stop it with Saquon, or how can Kellen create some different looks? I mean, I think it's pretty obvious. We just talked about it. Eagles are going to run this game through Saquon Barkley. Todd Bowles is a smarter guy than I am when it comes to defensive football in the NFL.
Yeah,
he's going to know that,
yeah.
you know. Is it one of those things you go player versus player and hope Saquon wins, or is Kellen going to get creative?
Well, I think they're going to get him the football a lot, and depending on how much, it depends on how effectively is it going. And you know, if they start to get rolling, yeah, you're going to see it going to him again and again and again and again. If Tampa Bay's selling out to stop Saquon Barkley because they're comfortable that nobody else is going to beat them, then you have to start going in a different direction. And Kellen Moore probably becomes a little bit more important when it comes to scheming certain guys like Dotson and Campbell open, Grant Calcaterra, as I mentioned, whatever. If you can get a prop on Grant Calcaterra, I'd go the over. I can't imagine it'd be more than 2. Probably go over from that perspective. So yeah, I mean, they're up against it offensively, and they got to do some different things because, as you mentioned, Todd Bowles knows, all right, we got to stop Saquon Barkley. The whole point of the Eagles offense is, all right, you want to stop Saquon? We'll go to AJ. We'll go to Devontae. We'll go to Dallas. And you still have Dallas Goedert, so he'll be number 1 in the passing game, a big impact. But this time it's I always said in the offseason with you, Zander, you know, if you're an opposing defensive coordinator and you look at the Eagles skill people, it's like, all right, who do you want to take away? It's pick your poison. Now it's not. Now you can go in with a structured plan. All right, I'm going to take this guy away. I'm a little bit concerned with this guy. You don't have to worry about everything coming at you from all angles. So it makes it a little bit easier. I think that's fair to say.
A lot easier considering AJ and Devontae are the 2 guys missing.
And by the way, Lane, I should have mentioned this with Lane Johnson. Look, for whatever reason, we know that the team's winning percentage with Lane Johnson is .620. Without him, it's .378. So to Sills' point about Jeff Stoutland, yeah, Jeff's better than anybody in the business getting people ready, but when Lane's not out there, it's been a problem for you.
You can't just replace an all-pro right tackle.
Not somebody at that level here. John, I will say this to you, though. You know, if they do get Barkley 25 carries like one of our viewers said here, that's 100 carries in 4 games. What do you make of that workload here?
Yeah, I asked
100 carries.
He's on pace for 414 before this game, 414 or 417.
Yeah.
I asked a bunch of people down there that exact question this week. And they basically said, if he's got to touch it 50 times, he's going to touch it 50 times. And their mentality is, A, you can't legislate injuries. Number one, which I agree with. I always talk about that.
But they try to, John. They try to.
Well, a lot of teams try to, but you can't.
Yeah,
and then from the standpoint of, you know, they will do the load management, whatever you want to call it. That's what they call it in the NBA. They will do that during the week. If they need him in the game, he's going to get the football. Now, sometimes when it comes to touches, if it's a 2-score game, either way, late, it'll take care of itself. Either, you know, you can take Saquon out because you're blowing somebody out and that limits the touches. Or even if you're behind and the game's over, you can take him out and not take away some of those touches. So, but if they need it and it's a 1-score game in the 4th quarter, unlimited from a touch standpoint. And that's their belief. And if he gets to 400 plus, I don't like what's that is probably going to do for him the next year, but they're worried about this year.
Looks like we're giving away a Saquon Barkley jersey today, folks. If
he gets 50 carries, you're giving another jersey away.
They're exaggerating. They're exaggerating for effect, but the point is, there's no touch limitation on Saquon Barkley because of the amount of touches, which on paper looks unsustainable. And I think, by the way, it is unsustainable. If he continues to touch it that much, it's the NFL. He's going to get hurt. I mean, and if he's not hurt, it's going to affect him. And late in the season, we saw that with Miles Sanders a couple of years ago. Miles was having a career year, got banged up late, wasn't the same player. in the run to the Super Bowl. So, but you can't legislate that. You can't predict injuries. So I get it from both perspectives.
All right, I'm going to make my bold prediction for the Eagles offensively today, Big Sills and John, is one of these wide receivers is going to do something in the game.
Oh,
Somebody's got to do
Somebody's
something in the game.
Really?
I'm taking Johnny Wilson as the
I'm
top.
going to stay with Goddard.
Well, no, Goddard. I'm talking about wide receivers.
No way.
Goddard's not involved because he's obviously the main guy in the passing game. You're not going to roll out Johnny Wilson, Paris Campbell, John Ross, Jahan Dotson.
You're going to go with Paris Hilton.
Any of them.
Really? You're going to go with Paris Hilton?
I'd rather go with Paris Hilton than Paris Campbell, but they're going with Paris Campbell.
I'm picking Johnny Wilson as my wide receiver.
Hey, John, today. That's been his boy since training camp. I've heard you the whole time go like
John's
this.
Been checking me on
hey,
Johnny.
John, is there a role for Johnny Wilson? John's going like this half the time. Yeah, it's like this, you know.
Well, I think people are skipping steps on Johnny Wilson. They think because he's 6'6", and this is the perfect example, 231, he's going to be Mike Evans or something like that. I mean, I always say about Johnny Wilson, he plays like he's 6'6" and 231. Sometimes that's good. He's very physical. He can break a tackle. He can block really well, which is rare these days for wide receivers. So that helps Saquon in the running game. But he ain't getting separation consistently from NFL cornerbacks because he plays like he's 6'6" and 231. So I'm not a big fan of contested catch guys being volume guys. In other words, if you don't create separation in this league, you're not going to catch a bunch of passes and be a big impact on the offense. I mean, this is Jahan Dotson from a wide receiver perspective. That's why they got him to in case AJ was out for a couple games or Devontae was out for a couple games. Unfortunately, both of them are out. This is why he's here, to be a little bit better in this situation than he typically would be in the past. And he's got to start showing that he's worthy of being a number one pick in this league. And there's really been no evidence of it, but at least, he's got the physical gifts to do some things. And the other guys probably don't. Now, John Ross is, what do you expect of John Ross? He hasn't played a game since 2021.
That's why I'm going Wilson. And by the way, Jalen has thrown the ball to Wilson. Jalen does favor certain targets over other targets. Last week when AJ was out, it was Smitty and it was Britton Covey. And then Johnny Wilson had a couple catches.
I'd be careful what you wish for.
Like Elliott Shore. That's who you.
I'll say this:
Devontae's out, AJ's out, Britton. Are you guys telling me Paris Campbell is going to be the guy today? I don't know.
I'm saying Jahan Dotson.
From a numbers game, I'll take Wilson.
And by the way, I'm not saying he's going to catch 7 passes for 120. I'm saying he's going to be the guy most centered upon, and he should be.
Yeah.
And if people want Jalen Hurts to stop this interception streak, you shouldn't be throwing it to Johnny Wilson a lot because there's going to be a lot of cornerbacks near him. There's going to be a lot of defensive backs right there to tip the ball, do something of that nature. There's not going to be a ton of separation. So,
I mean, if he targets Johnny Wilson, there's 3 picks tonight.
Okay, you tell me which receiver will step up tonight, not named Dallas Goedert, who's a tight end. What receiver will do something tonight? Because the way you guys are saying it, Jalen Hurts is going to have 65 passing yards in this entire game.
Grant Calcaterra.
I'm hanging with John hey, dude, you're not selling me the wide receiver, Bruno. I've got to go tight ends here, man.
You're riding the fence like a politician. Either tell me a receiver that's going to play well.
None of them.
None of them. Okay, that's an answer too.
Okay, so none of them.
I'll take that one.
I think Dotson will be fine. You
think he gets 5 over under, John? 5 catches.
Oh, I'm going under 5. That's a lot.
Okay.
I could see 3 or 4.
Okay, so how many does
so if he's the leader
Paris
in the
Campbell
clubhouse at 3 or 4?
How many does Paris Campbell get? Over under 5?
2 for 14.
Okay, so we got 7 completions.
I'm going to go 1 deep shot to John Ross. I think everybody will not pay attention to John Ross, and he'll just run by somebody. And I'm going to go 2 catches for 40-something yards for John Ross.
See that, Zander? He's got 9 completions for your boy Hurts tonight.
And I got
Give me
two.
4
I got
catches
2
for Johnny Wilson for 60.
I got
plus.
two for Johnny Wilson and probably for about 12 yards.
That's
In
11.
that
So Katera.
No, but then you got
Goddard are getting the majority of the the work tonight, right?
Yeah. Not that I think numbers matter, but yeah, Dallas will be number 1, and I think Rancal Katera and Jahan Dotson will be 2A and 2B.
Here goes Zander.
I'm going to advise everybody to not follow Prince's lead, who says, I just made that bet, Zander. It better cash in. Please do not take my Johnny Wilson betting advice.
John just goes like this, 2 catches for 14 yards. I'm like, what?
Not looking good based on those projections.
Well,
John, I do have a technical question that we probably have the answer to, but Abe checks in. Becton will be playing and Fred is in lane spot. Some people talked about would potentially Becton move, but I don't think they would move him outside because with lane's out, but they're going to keep him at guard and Fred will come in, right?
Yeah. Not short term. Yeah. If Lane was out for long term, they would probably move Mekhi outside, but Jeff Stoutland, one thing, he does not like affecting 2 positions because of an injury. So if he doesn't happen now, Fred Johnson shows up and is terrible, which I don't think he will be, then everything's in play. But no, Mekhi Becton is not. Hey, John, offensive line, and Dan can talk about this. Offensive line is about, syncing up, communication. You don't want to move guys all over.
No way.
Switching 2 positions just doesn't make sense.
No way like that. But hey, John, is the only reason that Becton's not starting is because he's got the cast? No, or is it because Steen played so well last week?
No, Becton is starting still.
Becton started.
Oh, Becton started. Okay, so
a lot of people wanted to move out to right tackle to replace.
No way.
And then put Tyler Steen in at guard.
It doesn't work like. Hey, John, tell people it doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly. And again, long term, if they lost Lane or Jordan for a significant period of time, they would not 100%, but I'm 95% certain they would move Mekhi outside to tackle. But that's for a long-term injury. Short-term, they even did this in practice. I mean, when Mekhi Becton went down in practice, he has trouble with his knee occasionally. And it was in practice. They moved. No, it was actually Tyler Steen. So when Tyler hurt his ankle, instead of putting Mekhi Becton in there, because Lane Johnson was out that day, Mekhi was taking right tackle snaps. They put in Darian Kennard, and everybody was like, and I even wrote about it at the time. Everybody was surprised that Darian Kennard was the next guy at right guard. Stoutland just didn't want to move things in practice. And the next day it was Becton because he was the backup, but he didn't even want to move it in practice. So he definitely doesn't want to affect it in a game if he doesn't have to, 2 positions. So that's just his belief. And I'm gonna lean on Jeff Stoutland when it comes to offensive line.
You know what, John? What I heard this week that I heard was one of the greatest formulas on coaching and having your guys constantly prepared. Most coaches do not do this, and you can go around the league and been covering the league for many years, and you know this. Offensive linemen don't rotate when you're talking first team guys like that, the way Stoutland does in practice. Everybody gets first team reps. Do you know how prepared that is and how great that is when a guy goes down, that you have a guy that's been engaged all week long, that his time when it comes, it may not come, but during the week, he gets all of his work during the week. He may not play on Sunday to be the only time of the week he didn't play. And then when that guy goes out, he's game ready. He's understanding. He's been engaged. That is such a great formula. You can go around the league. People don't do that. There's a first, second, and third team for a reason. And for the way he coaches, that's why those guys, when they roll in there, remember even Supetta last year against Aaron Donald. Not that he followed up. I mean, Supetta had a great game last year against Aaron Donald. And you're like, holy cow, these guys are just so ready. I mean, he's such a great coach. He's the best position coach the Eagles have had, in my opinion, since Jim Johnson. He's just such a fabulous coach.
All right,
He
well,
definitely is.
let's move into the defensive side because I'm being told our top receiver today is going to have 1 catch for 6 yards.
No,
So
John said 4.
I got to stop talking about the offense for a second. Let's move into the defensive side.
John
of the
I did
ball.
not
4
say
for
that.
14.
I
No,
said,
I was embellishing. I was just
I
embellishing
said,
for the
yeah,
time.
but you say that and people say it. I said Jahan Dotson will be Dallas Goedert, 1, the top target, Jahan Dotson, Grant Calcaterra, 2A, 2B. They could go either way. Those are the guys. Those are going to be the guys, in my opinion, when it comes to the passing game. And they're up against it. I mean, let's be honest. And remember the team they're playing. If you go back to the playoffs at the end of the 2021 season when the Eagles didn't have A.J. Brown, couldn't do a damn thing against that Tampa Bay defense. In 2023, when they didn't have A.J. Brown, couldn't do a damn thing against that Tampa Bay defense. Now they don't have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith.
Yeah,
it's a tall task.
You can try and put lipstick on a pig, but
hey, this guy sounds like Big Sills now. What are you
it's
talking
still going to
about?
be a pig. All right, let's move into the defensive side. I'm going to start with a couple key names here on defensive side. First, I want to thank Yafo Show. Guys, what the heck does this mean? He says the treacherous 3. Great content, go Bird. Is that some sort of backhanded compliment? I don't know what
Who cares? I like it. It sounds good.
I like it too. Drop $2. But he puts a good question and he says, well, Huff and Smith combined have a significant play today. That's where I was starting today, Johnny Mac. I'll go to you first on this on defensive side of the ball, and trying to limit this offense. First off, I think the Eagles secondary is going to be tested today when you're talking about Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Both of those guys are healthy.
Chris Godwin's having a great season. Very early, but great season.
Yeah. So tall
and Mike Evans is Mike Evans. So but overall, I don't think the Tampa Bay offense is that explosive. The running game, one of the things about Bryce Huff, that was the question. It was about Bryce Huff. Like, I know everybody, like, you got to settle down and look at the context of the game. Like Vic Fangio's first thought going into that Saints game, he broke out the 6-man front. He wanted to stop at all costs Alvin Kamara, and he did for the most part. And he wanted to stop the outside running game. Here it's completely different. Tampa Bay doesn't run the ball well. Rachaad White is going to play. He had food poisoning, I guess, but and he's recovered. So from that standpoint, okay, but he's not exactly the most explosive running back in the world. So you don't have that same fear of the running game going in. And he's not going to be hyper focused, Vic Fangio. He's not game planning to say, all right, I got to stop the run. This week it's about I got to deal with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin first and foremost. So the everybody gets caught up in the snap count. They're not looking at the game. They're not looking at what he's trying to accomplish. So Huff will be back up from that 18 snaps or whatever he had last week. Now, he's still not playing well. Nobody's trying to say that, but Brandon Graham is playing well. So he should be out there on when the base defense is out there. And then in obvious passing situations, Bryce Huff needs to show something. This is his best opportunity because he generally lines up on the left side, not always, but generally. Again, I mentioned Luke Gedicke's out again. They were hoping to get him back. They didn't get him back, so they're using their backup right tackle. And he's got to show up and make a play. If he doesn't show up and make a play, then it's just going to keep. It's going to keep building the criticism and building and building and building. But for those hyper-focused on the snap counts, understand who they were playing last week, understand who they're playing this week. If he does play 18 snaps this week, it's a really bad sign. But I don't think that's going to be the case.
Sills, I'll come to you. Defensively, what's the Eagles' approach there to slow down this offense?
John's right. That guy's Casper the Ghost right now. That's his nickname. I mean, last week when they put Brandon Graham out there on the edge, it was completely the difference. Wasn't getting washed into traffic. I mean, my problem with Huff is not so much the hits on the quarterback, which he was hired to do. It's the fact in the run game, he's getting blown off the ball by tight ends into traffic, which means pursuit angles are being affected by that. When he was with New York, New York, he couldn't do the same thing. You know, even Vic, the entire offseason here, has been saying it's a work in progress on this guy being a 3-down guy. Well, guess what? They don't need that right now. Brandon Graham has kind of set the edge. Hey, and I'll tell you this, guy who's flying under the radar a little bit, I think Sweat on the other side's done a pretty decent job.
Yeah, he's looked
in
okay.
The first 3 weeks of the season here. I mean, there's not high volume of numbers, but you know what he's done? He's stabilized that side, and now Brandon Graham has stabilized the other side. I'll say this to you too. This is all going to come down once again to the mismatch over the center with Graham Barton, the rookie, as John said, and the 2 guards. We had Ian Beckles on with us, the former Buck, and part of the postgame and pregame show for their broadcast team. And he said those guys are just not playing very well. They're averaging 91 yards a game. And if Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter don't dominate this, those linebackers, once again, because they're not big dudes, are not going to perform well. I mean, they perform well. If you notice, every single time the guys in front of them play well. Now, that's not anything a brown breaking here. You know, your tackles play great. Your linebackers are going to scrape. Well, that's why Bond played so well against New Orleans, because those 2 guys were dominant. That front 4, in my opinion, should dominate this football game. Tristan Wirfs is probably one of the top 3 offensive tackles in the National Football League. He's a phenomenal player. Yeah. But the rest of these guys are good, but I wouldn't say they're great. Okay, so, I mean, look, Atlanta has one of the better O-lines. I told everyone, they got a top 5 O-line. The Saints aren't completely horrible. This is the worst O-line that the Eagles are going to face, and they need to take advantage of some of these mismatches in here. And this is going to come down to a 5-set front that he ran last week. Remember, they're going to be in 11 person. They're going to be in 12 personnel, more than what New Orleans was a week ago. This is what Tampa loves to do. So you're going to see a lot of that nickel package back there, and you're going to see that probably 70% of the time, or 68, whatever it is, John, 68-9, that the league most of the time is in nickel. So you're going to see a lot of that. What's Vic going to do? Is he going to put a 5-man, go back to 4? I mean, does he think he has the advantage? Does he have the numbers? It's going to be interesting how he is going to attack this Buck O-line. I think this is the lesser of all the O-lines they've played so far in the first month of the season.
Which is big for Bryce Huff, you know, a guy who, as John points out, most players in the league rack up sacks.
Sandra, you know what I would do with him? I would do what John said. I'd blitz him off the weak side, and I would not be putting him over on the sides of tight ends. I'd be having him come off the short side of the field or the weak side of the field. Get him in space. Don't get him in a double team scenario where you can get chip blocked.
The weak side means Tristan Wirfs, Big Sills. He ain't getting by Tristan Wirfs.
I'd rather go against one guy than have 2 guys hammer him like that, because he'll be worn out by week 7. I mean, I never thought that bye week was great, but I'll tell you what, this Eagle team, man, with that bye on the flip side of this, it is much needed.
Bryce needs to show up, because people are starting to talk about him like he's a Make-A-Wish kid. I mean, the guy can play. He's already played.
John, I get it. But
he's already played at the NFL level. It's not like this is a projection from college or anything of that nature. He's already proven he can play at the NFL level. What I think part of the problem is, you know, he played in a more aggressive scheme. He's not playing with confidence in Vicks, which is more read and react. It's not a strength. You know, this is one that if it doesn't work out long term, you can point to Howie Roseman and say, you know, this is not the fit for this defense. And it's not like they changed their defensive scheme. They've been playing this scheme. This is the 4th year they've been playing this scheme. So you say, you know, I always said if Bryce Huff was here, Jim Schwartz was here, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation, because Jim, it'd be one gap, go get the quarterback. But we're playing a more gap and a half read and react scheme, and he's playing with no confidence. And Vic's got to get him some confidence. So I think 99 times out of 100, I'm going to lean towards Vic. He deserves part of the problem here. He's got to realize he's got to accentuate the strengths of the player and maximize the deficiencies. And
but he's not going to change the whole defense for a player, right?
No, but you know, he's done it in the past. As you mentioned, look, he doesn't roll out that 6-man front. He rolls it out once every 4 years. All right, this is not a guy who stands still. If he needs to do something, he generally does it. Well, he needs to do something with Bryce Huff. And if that means only playing him, if that means if he's a one-trick pony, that's fine, but use the one trick. And right now he's not using the one trick.
Any ideas how he would do that though, John? Like, just give us an example.
Wait, here, let me
because Vic isn't going to change his identity. But go ahead, Phil.
Zander, here, John, correct me if I'm wrong. What Jim Johnson did with Hugh Douglas. I mean, guys were telling me the whole time, and you go back, you can talk to Tank, you can talk to some of these guys. This guy did not want to play the run whatsoever. He just did not want to. So Jim Johnson came up with a formula on being able to utilize his number one strength, that was pass rushing, and he basically customized a role for him on that team. And now the guy's got a green jacket now. I mean, so he customized the role. I think Vic is that guy. I think Vic can customize a role for that guy. Look what he's done for Zach Bond. One of the things that you could say this about Huff. This is about like playing the averages too. If Huff doesn't pan out and Bond does, I mean, you're looking at averages. You're not going to land on every pod and everything's going to be as successful. The thing that you love about what you're seeing with Zach Bond, you could play him in a 6 front. You could play him in a 52. You could play him in a 34, 43. You can line him up in 3 technique 7, or you can go across the board with him. They created a role for him in his versatility. Is he the best guy in the league? No, but there's a role for that guy. So I think right now Vic's possibly trying to find that role for him. I mean, you put him in a position just to pass rush and a specialized pass rusher. Fred Dean, back in years and years and years ago, there was a guy that played in the NFL named Fred Dean, was a Hall of Famer. He couldn't play the run to save his life. But you know what they did? Line him up on 3rd down and he killed quarterbacks. There's a role for that.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah. I mean, there's a big role. And if he was getting to the quarterback, to be honest, nobody would be talking about his inability to stop the run.
He'd be Hassan, right, John? I mean, that's what kind of.
Well, yeah, pretty much Hassan's the same type of player, but obviously he's productive. But it's funny because Rich Samini, who covers the Jets for ESPN, it's funny. Like he had mentioned, and I want to pull up the quote on his podcast. He said, "I don't think that's an indictment on Huff. I mean, we know he's a good player. And so I do believe the Jets made a mistake by letting him go. It's just that he's not a good fit in the Eagles system. And clearly Vic Fangio, their defensive coordinator, has not embraced Huff. And so that's on the Eagles. They screwed up the signing. They've taken a good player and they're misusing him." I say that because everybody with the Jets saw this guy play and they all think he can play. And it's funny because everybody here thinks he can't play. And I think Rich is right. I think they're not tapping into what he does well, and they're trying to turn him into the well-rounded 3 down because they paid him so much money.
All right.
Not only does he have to rush the passer, he's got to set the edge, and he's got to play as a flat defender like he's Andrew Van Ginkel. That's bullshit. And from talking to Vic, and anybody who listens to my show, and Zander can attest to this, I'm a big Fangio guy. But, I'm also going to call him out when he's doing something that doesn't make sense. And what he's doing with Bryce Huff doesn't make sense. I get it from where you start. And Vic says this counterintuitively. He likes to throw a lot at the players early and then scale back, where most people start them out slowly and then build. He does it the opposite way. But that's fine. But it's time to scale back, dude. Tap into the one trick.
Right. Yeah.
John, I'll give you an example of this. Bert Grossman, a friend of mine back in the day, I think he even played with the Eagles a little bit. When he was in San Diego at the time with the Chargers, they had him in a 34 his first 2 years in the league. He had 10 sacks a year in his first 2 years, former Pitt product. When Bobby Ross came in, they went to a 43. He immediately, being out of a scheme, went to 5 sacks and 3 sacks, and they thought he was a bust because they weren't utilizing his skill set. I've brought this up on my show. Even Rich McKay, the president of the Falcons, came on my program. I was a 3 technique in college. You had me 2-gapping? I don't even know what that was. I've never played nose in my life. Hey, play nose. I'm like, nose what? I'm a 3 technique. I get up the field. I don't really I'm a 1 read, 1 gap guy. And the Bucs are playing me in 2 gap. Zander, you know what that is? That's a fire hydrant slug that sits there in 2 gaps and lets the linebackers be superstars. You think an Eagle like Big Sills is going to let the guys behind me be a star? Not going to happen. Richie.
Oh, I remember Rich McKay on your show telling you they played you all out of position.
They played me out of position. Yeah. So to John's point about Bryce Huff, it's a bad sign. It's not a bad player.
Yeah, we'll see how it all plays out. We got to get to a break here. We've been running long. Last question, and I want everybody in the chat to check in on this one as well. Over under half a sack. That means he gets a sack. Does Bryce Huff get on the board today? Johnny Mac, I'll start with you.
I'm going over. I think
I like it. You went under on Birds. I like it.
This is it. I'm going over now because I thought Gedeke was going to play. I thought Gedeke, he's not. So it's going to be Justin Skule, I believe, is going to be he's been the backup. He has not played well. So if Gedeke was out there, I was going the under. He's been ruled out. I'm going the over now. I think he gets a sack.
Big Sills, half a sack for Bryce Huff. Over, under.
You know what that is? That's SOS.
That's the SOS.
Iceberg coming. No way. I'm taking the under.
Ooh. You're taking the under. I'm going to side with who do I want to side with? I'll pick after the break. I got to think about this one. Both of you guys just gave.
I'm usually not the optimistic one.
I'm still stuck on John's four receptions for Dotson.
Yeah.
No, I don't even want to address. Sills, I left that one. I had to let that one leave the brain. Let's get to our commercial break.
Somebody's got to catch it. 20-point score on a bad NBA team. Somebody's got to score.
Exactly. Somebody's got to catch it. I'm going Johnny Wilson. Nobody wants to take it with me. I'll ride Johnny Wilson. Let's get to our commercial break. I want to thank everybody for being here. Our predictions for the game are coming up next. Before I do that, I want to thank the super chatters in here. Joseph Alvino, why aren't the Eagles giving Jalen a ton of chance? Joseph, we'll hit that after the break. And Marchetti says, John, any chance Eagles try to get Reddick back? Both of those super chats we will get to really quickly after the break. So thanks, everybody, for being here. Hit that like button. The JAKIB Pregame Show will be back in 3 minutes with our final predictions for the game coming up next.
He's blocked well and tries to cut through the middle. Oh!
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on Sports Grid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on Sports Grid.
Score and save at Southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
But as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
as long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer 3 major services, the first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
imaginations run wild, and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods. Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to the JAKIB Pregame Show with John McMullen, Dan Sileo, and myself, Zander Krause. Thanks, everybody, for being here today. Week 4 of the NFL getting ready to kick off on our Sunday coverage here of the Eagles. They're kicking off in around 20 minutes down in Raymond James Stadium in Tampa Bay. Last segment here to close out the pregame show. We're going to give you some of our predictions on the game. Before we do that, we'll get the final thoughts here and keys to the game here. Johnny Mac, I'll start with you. Keys to the game and your prediction for this one, brother.
Oh boy, keys to the game: persevere, man, persevere. I mean, this is a team that has had Jalen Hurts' number with Todd Bowles, as we've kind of mentioned, and that's with at least Devontae Smith. Over the years, it's been really ugly when AJ has not been out there. Now you don't have both of them. This time you're better equipped from a running game to maybe get Saquon to lean on him. And I think you should lean on Saquon Barkley in this game. Defensively, need that consistency from Jalen Carter. That's number one. He's got another chance for him to dominate. Doesn't have to be as dominant. It's kind of hard to play at the level he did against New Orleans week in and week out, but you need to be at a high level and not have these EKG spikes where he's up, he's down, he's all over the place. He's got to play more consistently. And I think if he's able to do that, the rest of the Eagles defense will follow suit. I don't think the Bucs are that explosive. So I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a one-score game. But until the Eagles get over the hump of Todd Bowles, I got to lean towards the Buccaneers. I got them winning 20-17.
Johnny Mac picks the Bucs 2017. Big Sills, I'll come to you. Your keys to the game today and your prediction on Eagles Bucs week 4.
So look at this here, man. We got Michael Zeal from South Philly.
Yeah, the real Zeal, big supporter here on JAKIB. So big shout out to him.
Yeah, he's there at the game right now, and it looks like it's pretty good weather there too. Like John said,
yeah, I'm watching that. Yep, it's
has
good.
Moved out here, so that looks really good. So that's a good thing here. Hey, look, man, I said it on Friday, and I'll say it again. They got the better quarterback. You know, I get Barkley, but decision making has to be at a premium today because of the lack of stars that are off that offense. You've got to get consistency on that defensive side, like Johnny Mac said. And I'll tell you this. What pissed me off about the Saints game was when I watched the way those two tackles play and that defense plays, that's what that team can be. Are they that yet? We don't know that yet. Can you put consistency together on the defensive side of the ball? To me, the key is on the defensive side. Barkley's going to get his yards because there's too many holes in that Buck defense. And Jalen Hurts is going to get his yards. I think the game comes down on the other side of the football. Are you going to see that Eagle defense show up and shut down that Buccaneer average offense? If you look at their numbers, they're everywhere in the low 20s or mid 20s when it comes to scoring offense, when it comes to rushing offense, when it comes to passing offense. 181 yards a game. You're not being, you're not scared of that. However, what really concerns me is how's that secondary going to play out? Is that we're going to see an Isaiah Rodgers signing? Who's on Mike Evans? Who's in the slot? Godwin's having, like John said, an outstanding start to the season. They've got explosive weapons. They just haven't been explosive yet. Mike Evans is one of the only wide receivers next to Jerry Rice to have 10 consecutive years of over 1,000 yards. I thought Father Time would have got him 3 years ago. He hasn't yet. He's a spectacular football player. They've got players on that team. That all being said, I'm going with the better quarterback. I'm going with Jalen Hurts, and I'm going 27-20 Eagles.
A lot of points. Woo. Boy, I'll be impressed if they score 27.
I think 27-20. Eagles in this game here.
Maybe get a defensive score. Maybe Quinyon finally gets one. Maybe a special team score.
Hey, John, he's been more than I thought, and I'll tell you the
I like a little show of optimism from Big Sills and Eagle.
I'll tell you,
all right, well, for everybody, if you're in the chat, Big Sills is 0 for 3 on the year, so maybe it's the kiss of death.
Oh, so wait, I just gave you the kiss of death. All right, wait a minute. What am I, Drake? Okay, so I'm Drake now, right?
Big Sills.
Somebody got called to fire me because I guess I picked the Bucs. So you guys got to fire me. Yeah.
What do you got, Zander?
It's not going anywhere. I got 24-21. I think the Eagles win this game. I think they somehow find a way to win. I've been calling on Jalen Hurts to step up. This is a big game for him. This is the first game since 2021, that he's played a game with this lack of talent around him in terms of at the wide receiver position. Obviously, we talked about that a lot. The wide receivers he has coming into this game. I mean, we're talking about Johnny Wilson and John Ross, who haven't, John Ross hasn't played since 2021. So
by the way, John Ross, do not adjust your screens. John Ross will be wearing number 38 playing wide receiver.
Yeah, so if you see him out there, you know who it is. I'm taking the Eagles in this one. I think 24-21. They get into the bye week at 3-1. They need this bye week. I know the early bye weeks aren't what you want, but they need this bye week. I think it's more important than winning any of these one games is getting those 3 guys healthy. So that's why the bye week comes at a good time. I'm going to take the Eagles in this one, 24-21. That's going to do it on the JAKIB Pregame Show. Before we get out of here, guys, I just want to rip through a couple super chats from our people in the chat. Terry Hayes, our JAKIB Legend member, everybody. He was the first JAKIB Legend member. So Terry is got a good gift coming for him. I got to connect with Terry. So Terry, thanks for the support. He says, unfortunately, it's an out-of-market game for me. I'm going to listen to Merrill Reese call the game. Go Birds. Hope it's a good one. Can't go wrong listening to Merrill, Terry. And then, John, just an answer to Nick, who says, John, any chance Eagles try to get Reddick back?
You never say never with Howie, but I'm saying 98% no. I mean, I'm
going to go 99.
Yeah. Hassan, obviously, things haven't worked out for him, but he's shown the courage. I'll tell you what, he's shown the courage of his convictions. He is underpaid.
Hey, John, $9.8 million he's burned. That's how much he's convictions.
I mean, yeah, it's amazing. The reason the Eagles got rid of him, and they knew this was coming, he didn't want to play on the final year of his contract. Has that changed? I don't think it's changed. So, the Eagles don't want to adjust it up to 25 million or whatever he wants. And yeah, they're going to have to persevere with what they have. From all indications. Now, if things continue to go horribly, and Hassan says, you know what? I'm local. I'm from South Jersey. I went to Tampa, all the Philly stuff. I'd rather play there for under market value. I just don't see it happening.
Tough game here. Tough thing. I don't think Hassan Reddick's coming back. Big Sills, I know you are the same. We're 10 minutes out, everybody. 10, 12 minutes out from game time. Everybody enjoy the game. Great stuff there. We got 2 Eagles win predictions, myself and Big Sills, and Johnny Mac takes the Bucs.
Fire me. Fire.
I'm not firing Johnny Mac for picking the Bucs. Guys, we're without A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Lane Johnson. I mean, can you really fault Johnny Mac? We'll see what the Birds can do today. One last super chat on our way out. Brian Pumper, thank you, man. I got Hurts completing a lot of passes to the Bucs. Jalen is a turnover specialist. He needs to grow a pair to conquer.
He needs to take care of the football. So absolutely. Stop throwing it to Johnny Wilson.
That's an aggressive super chat there, my man. Oh, baby. He's coming at Jalen there. Good stuff, everybody. Hit that like button. Big Sills, great show. Johnny Mac, great show. We'll catch you guys on the postgame show. Thanks, everybody.
EAGLES, Eagles.